Tell the judge you're broke. Marin, don't you dare embarrass this family. My mother's whisper sliced through the hush of the federal courthouse hallway. Sweet on the surface and poisonous underneath. She held a designer tissue to an eye that wasn't even wet. Like she'd already decided what kind of scene she wanted to play. Inside courtroom 3B in downtown Reno, my little sister sat perfectly upright beside her brand new attorney. Lips pressed into a confident line, she looked like someone who'd rehearsed winning. My father sat next to my mother, jaw tight, nodding along as if agreement could rewrite reality. I sat at the defendant's table in a simple, expensive charcoal suit, hands folded, my posture calm enough to irritate them. My attorney, Dana Morales, didn't fidget. She didn't glare. She didn't perform. She simply organized our exhibits with the kind of quiet certainty that only comes from knowing the truth is on your side. The clerk called the case. My sister's lawyer stood like he was stepping onto a stage. Your Honor, he began, voice full of practiced sympathy. My client, Tessa Caldwell, advanced significant funds to her sister's company under a family-backed internal agreement. That debt remains unpaid. The company is now insolvent. And my client seeks protection as a creditor. Insolvent. That word traveled across the room like a slap. A few people in the gallery leaned forward. Someone behind me scribbled notes. My sister's expression didn't change. But her eyes did. They flicked toward me with a faint, victorious shine that made my stomach go cold. Not because I was afraid. Because I finally understood what she wanted more than money. She wanted proof I was smaller than her. My mother let out a careful sob at just the right moment. Dabbing her dry cheek, my father nodded. Slow and solemn. The way he did when he wanted people to believe he was disappointed for noble reasons. Our parents gave Marin every opportunity. My sister's lawyer continued. Yet she chose risky ventures. Ignored family advice. And now refuses to repay the very people who tried to help her. My mother's whisper echoed in my head. Don't embarrass this family. I almost laughed. The family was embarrassing itself. Before I continue, thank you for being here with me in this first brutal moment. If you've ever had your hard work downplayed or your truth twisted by people who share your blood, your support through a like, a comment, a share, or a gentle subscribe genuinely means a lot to me. I'm grateful you're listening. The judge, a silver-haired man with tired eyes and a voice that carried without effort, began reviewing the petition. He read quietly for a minute, flipping pages with slow, controlled movements. Then my sister's lawyer handed up new documents with the confidence of a man who thought he'd just delivered the finishing blow. Supplemental records. Your Honor. Asset statements and tax filings. The judge accepted them, adjusted his glasses, and scanned. The room got quieter. Even my mother stopped sniffling. Like she sensed something was shifting. Dana didn't move. She just watched the bench. Calm as stone, the judge paused. He stopped reading mid-line. He took off his glasses, looked down again, then lifted his eyes toward us. When he spoke, his voice cut through the courtroom like a verdict already decided. I've reviewed the asset and tax records, he said. Someone in this courtroom is lying to my face. My sister's confident smile vanished so fast, it was almost comical. My mother's tissue froze mid-air. My father went rigid. The nod stuck halfway. I sat there quietly, heart steady. Because I'd been preparing for this exact moment for 10 years. The judge's words hung in the air so long I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My sister's lawyer recovered first, clearing his throat as if he could cough his way back into control. Your Honor, I assure you my client has provided accurate information. The judge's expression didn't soften. Then it should be very easy for your client to explain why her reported income and her declared creditor status do not align with these filings. My mother leaned toward my father, whispering furiously. My father's eyes never left the bench, but his jaw worked like he was grinding a truth he couldn't swallow. Dana slid a note toward me under the table. Stay calm. Let them unravel. I'd been calm for years. Calm was how I survived my family. Growing up, Tessa was the sun and I was the shadow. She was praised for breathing. I was corrected for existing. If she cried, it was because someone hurt her. If I cried, it was because I was too sensitive. Dad called her my girl. Mom called her my best friend. I was the responsible one, which in our house meant the one who absorbed consequences so others didn't have to. That dynamic followed us into adulthood. When I started my logistics software company, my parents told everyone I was playing entrepreneur. When it began generating real revenue, they suddenly became proud, loudly, publicly, because my success made them look good. And when I refused to let them control it, the pride turned into pressure. Tessa reappeared right on schedule, smiling like she'd never mocked me. I want to invest, she said, sliding a one-page family loan agreement across my kitchen counter. Just a simple, internal loan. You pay me back when you can. It'll make Mom and Dad feel included. I should have burned that paper, but I was exhausted. I was trying to scale, hire, compete, and I wanted, stupidly, to believe my family could be normal for once. So I asked Dana to review it. She flagged the language immediately. This is vague. It gives her too much leverage. It reads like a creditor claim disguised as help. I didn't sign it that day. I told Tessa I needed time. That's when my parents stepped in. Dad called me late at night, voice heavy with disappointment. Why are you making this difficult? Your sister is trying to support you. Mom texted paragraphs about loyalty and gratitude. And Tessa, sweet as syrup, started showing up with gifts and apologies that felt rehearsed. They didn't want to invest. They wanted a hook in my mouth. I signed a revised version after Dana added protections, but even then, I refused to give them access to accounts or operations. The money Tessa sent went into a segregated ledger. Every transfer documented, every use recorded. Because I knew my family, and I was right to. 3 months later, Tessa called crying. I'm in trouble, she whispered. I need you to help me temporarily. Just route a couple invoices through your company. It'll smooth my taxes. I said no. Then Dad called. You're going to let your sister drown. After everything we've done for you, I still said no. That's when the story flipped. Suddenly, the loan became a debt I was refusing to pay. Suddenly, Tessa became the victim. Suddenly, my parents started hinting I was hiding money, lying about profits, taking advantage, and quietly, behind the scenes, they did something worse. They tried to use my company as a shield for Tessa's mess. Dana and I found the proof in the audit trail emails from Tessa's accountant, asking my finance team to classify her personal liabilities as business obligations. Draft documents with my forged signature. A payment request that would have made my company responsible for her private debt. That's what she really wanted. Not repayment. Protection. A legal sponge to soak up her consequences. So I built my own folder thicker than anything she'd brought to court. Screenshots. Time-stamped emails. bank transfers, signed amendments. And one key piece, the loan she claimed I owed her. It traced back to a settlement paid to cover her own prior default. My parents had moved funds through me to keep her name clean. In other words, they were using the court to rewrite history and pin her debt on me. Dana stood when the judge asked, "Ms. Morales, do you have a response to the court's concern?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "We request an order compelling the plaintiff to submit complete bank statements, tax transcripts, and the full accounting of funds transferred under this so-called internal loan." The judge didn't hesitate. "Granted," he said. "Plaintiff will produce all records within 5 business days." My sister's lawyer went pale. My mother's hands began to shake, and I sat there, steady, because I knew what was coming next. When those records hit the court, the liar would have nowhere left to hide. The humiliation didn't end at the courthouse. It never does with families like mine. They don't just want to win, they want an audience. That weekend, my mother insisted on hosting a charity fundraiser at our old church hall. The kind of small-town event where people donate baked goods, bid on silent auction baskets, and trade gossip under the disguise of community. It was supposed to raise money for a local children's clinic, but my family wasn't there for the clinic. They were there for my downfall. When I walked in, the room smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls. Folding tables lined the walls. A banner hung crooked near the stage. People smiled at me the way people smile when they've already heard a story about you and are trying to decide if you deserve sympathy or judgment. My mother stood near the dessert table in a pastel blazer, dabbing her eyes like she had been crying for hours. Tessa hovered beside her with a hand on Mom's shoulder. The picture of devoted daughter. My father shook hands with donors at the entrance, acting like a man carrying a heavy cross. I didn't come for them. I came because the clinic mattered, and because I wasn't going to let my family turn every room into a tribunal. But the moment Tessa saw me, she raised her voice just enough for the nearest circle to hear. "There she is," she said softly. "I hope she's ready to do the right thing." Heads turned. My mother sighed dramatically. "Please, Marin, we don't want conflict. We just want the truth." The truth. The word made my stomach tighten. I walked to the sign-in table, wrote a donation amount, and handed my card to the volunteer. She glanced at the number, eyes widening slightly, but she didn't comment. She just smiled politely and said, "Thank you." Behind me, I heard my aunt whisper, "She's trying to buy forgiveness." Tessa's lawyer from the courthouse was there too. Which should have been my first clue this wasn't a normal fundraiser. He stood near the stage, speaking quietly with a few people, nodding as if he was offering spiritual guidance instead of legal strategy. My mother climbed the small steps to the microphone after the pastor gave a brief welcome. "I wasn't going to say anything," she began, voice trembling perfectly. "But my heart is heavy. Our family has been going through something painful." The room quieted. My pulse stayed steady. I'd seen this performance before. My mother continued. "My daughter Tessa tried to help her sister. She gave her money, support, love, and now she's being attacked in court for it." A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. Tessa wiped a tear that appeared right on cue. She looked toward me like she was offering mercy. People began lifting phones. I saw the glint of screens pointed my way. Like they were filming a wildlife documentary. The villain had arrived. My mother's voice rose. "We raised Marin to be honest, to be grateful. But sometimes success changes people." There it was. The story they wanted. I had become cold, greedy, ungrateful. Tessa stepped toward the mic. voice shaky. "I didn't want to sue my own sister," she said. "But I had no choice. She refused to repay me. She refused to acknowledge what I sacrificed." A man near the front nodded. "That's heartbreaking." I could feel the room tightening around me, like a net being pulled closed. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I simply looked at my family and realized something sharp and final. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to punish me for not being controllable. Then a voice came from the side of the room. "Excuse me," a woman said, stepping forward with a clipboard. She wore a badge on a lanyard and a look of discomfort, like she didn't want to be involved but couldn't stay quiet. I recognized her immediately. She worked at the local credit union. I'd seen her name on one of the requests for Tessa's records. The woman glanced at the pastor, then at my mother, then at Tessa. "I'm sorry," she said carefully, "but I can't listen to this without saying something." I was asked to verify certain transaction histories for the court. The room went still. Tessa's face tightened. My mother's smile faltered for the first time. The woman continued, voice firm now. "What you're saying doesn't match what the records show. The transfers, they don't look like a loan to Marin. They look like payments made to cover Tessa's liabilities, routed through Marin's business account." A gasp rippled through the crowd. My mother snapped. "Too loud. Too fast. That's not appropriate. This is a church event," the woman swallowed. But she didn't back down. "I'm just saying, people shouldn't be publicly accused when the documentation says something else." The phones lowered slightly. The air shifted. Doubt crept in. Quiet but powerful. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. I turned, picked up my purse, and walked toward the exit. Not running, not shaking, just walking. Behind me. My mother's voice cracked as she tried to regain control. But the room wasn't listening the same way anymore, and I kept walking. Because I knew this wasn't the moment to fight. This was the moment to let the lie start collapsing under its own weight. Outside. The cold air hit my face. I took one breath, then another, and I walked away in silence. By Monday, the fundraiser video had spread through our circles. But it didn't hit the way my family intended. People didn't see a sainted sister and an ungrateful villain anymore. They saw a performance, and once a crowd senses performance, the spell breaks. I didn't post online. I didn't defend myself in comments. I did the thing I'd always done when my family tried to drown me in noise. I worked. Dana brought in a forensic accountant named Neil Grant. A quiet man with wireframe glasses and the kind of patience that can peel lies apart one transaction at a time. He sat in my office with 3 monitors, pulling my company's ledgers, cross-referencing deposits, tracing where each loan dollar really went. Within 2 days, he found what I already suspected. The money Tessa claimed she loaned to me wasn't money she had. It was money she owed. There were payments routed through my business account that matched the exact dates of her liability notices. There were transfers labeled consulting that went straight to a collections firm tied to a defaulted lease in her name. There was even a sequence of small deposits and withdrawals designed to make it look like she funded me, when in reality, my account was being used as a clean hallway to walk her mess out of sight. It was financial theater, and my parents were part of the stage crew. Dana prepared our next filing. "We can request sanctions for bad faith," she said, "if we can show this was a deliberate attempt to mislead the court. The judge will be furious." "Not yet," I said. Dana raised an eyebrow. I kept my voice calm. Let them keep talking. Let them keep trying to fix it. People reveal themselves when they're desperate. Tessa called that evening from an unknown number. voice suddenly gentle, like we were close sisters again. "Marin," she said, "I hate how this has gotten. Maybe we can settle. Privately." Settle meant one thing. She'd realized the records were dangerous. I didn't bite. "Send your offer to my attorney." She sighed dramatically. "You don't have to be cold." I didn't respond. Silence is a boundary too. The next day, my mother showed up at my office reception. Security called me. "Your mother is here," they said, "and she won't leave." I met her in the lobby. Not in private. I refused to give her the intimacy she used as leverage. She stepped toward me. Eyes glossy. "This is destroying your father. He can't handle stress." "Why are you doing this?" I kept my voice low. "Why did you let them drag me in public?" Her lips trembled. "We were trying to protect the family." "No," I said. "You were protecting Tessa." My mother flinched, as if I'd spoken a forbidden truth. Then she tried the angle she always used when she ran out of logic. "Your sister needs help," she whispered. "If you love her at all, you'll end this." I looked at her steadily. If she needed help, she could have asked. She chose a court filing and a microphone. My mother's face hardened. "If you don't settle, she'll tell everyone you're hiding assets. She'll say you're committing fraud." I almost smiled, because that threat told me everything. People who are clean don't threaten with dirt. They threaten with truth. Dana called me the moment my mother left. "They just filed an emergency motion claiming you're concealing accounts," she said. "They're requesting expanded discovery." "Good," I replied. Dana paused. "Good. Yes," I said. "Let the court pull everything. Let them look under every rock. We have nothing to hide." What Tessa didn't understand was that discovery is a blade that cuts both ways. If the court demanded full transparency, her entire structure of staged transfers and disguised liabilities would be exposed under oath. And if my parents had signed anything, emailed anything, or pressured anyone, it would surface too. I watched the sunset spill across my office window and felt the quiet beginning of power settle in my chest. Not loud, not cruel, just steady. The kind of power that doesn't need to scream because it has receipts. Before we move into the next phase, thank you for staying with me through this rebuilding. If you've ever chosen patience over panic while people tried to twist your story, your support through a like, comment, share, or a gentle subscribe truly means a lot to me. I'm grateful you're here. The moment the judge granted expanded discovery, Tessa's confidence started leaking through the cracks. Court orders don't care about charisma. They don't care about family narratives. They care about paper trails. Within days, subpoenas went out. Bank statements, tax transcripts, email archives, accounting software logs, even metadata from attachments my sister's lawyer had tried to present as supplemental records. Dana told me, "This is the part where people who are lying start making mistakes." She was right. Tessa called me again, this time angry enough to forget her sweet voice. "You're dragging Mom and Dad into this," she snapped. "Do you want them humiliated?" I kept my tone calm. "They dragged themselves when they chose your story over the truth. You always think you're so righteous." She spit. "Just settle. Give me what I'm owed and we can stop." "What you're owed?" I repeated softly. "You mean what you tried to pin on me?" She hung up. That night, Dana forwarded me an email. Our IT team recovered from the server archive. Flagged as recently accessed by an admin account that shouldn't have been touched. The subject line made my stomach tighten. "Re-transfer routing. Keep it off my books." The sender was Tessa, and the recipient was my mother. I stared at it for a long time, then opened the thread. Tessa, we need to move the payment through Marin's account like last time. If it stays in mine, it shows up in the transcript. Mom, your father can't know. He'll blame you. Tessa, then don't tell him. Just do what we planned. Marin won't say no. She never does. My hands went cold. Not from shock, but from the finality of it. They hadn't just used me. They had planned to, and they had been counting on my silence as a financial tool. The next morning, Neil, the forensic accountant, walked into my office holding a printout, like it was radioactive. I found a pattern, he said. It's not just the one liability. It's multiple. This looks like laundering personal obligations through the corporate ledger to disguise her solvency. Dana's eyes narrowed. If we can show intent, the judge will sanction them. Neil nodded. We can, but we need one more piece. We got it by accident. A woman from the credit union called my office and asked to speak to Dana. When Dana put her on speaker, the woman's voice trembled. I shouldn't be doing this, she said. But I'm afraid your sister is going to blame the bank. Her attorney's been calling, asking if we can correct transaction language in old statements. Dana's expression hardened. Did you? No, the woman said quickly. But I have the call log. And I have the recorded line where he asked. Dana looked at me. And I felt it in my bones. This was the golden thread. Not just proof of bad behavior, proof of attempted evidence manipulation. Dana thanked the woman, then ended the call and sat very still. They're trying to rewrite the record, she said. And Mom, I asked quietly. Dana tapped the email thread. Your mother is already involved. If they try to put her on the stand, she'll either lie or collapse. Either way, it's ugly. 2 days before the pre-trial conference, my father finally called me. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Marin, he said. Your mother says this is all a misunderstanding. She says you're punishing the family. I swallowed hard. Dad, do you want the truth? Silence. Then, quietly, yes. I emailed him the thread. He didn't respond for 6 hours. When he finally did, it was one sentence. I didn't know. And for the first time, I believed him. At the pre-trial conference, Tessa sat at her table with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her attorney looked tired. He kept adjusting his tie like it was choking him. When the judge asked about the missing records they hadn't produced yet, he stammered a little too long before speaking. We're still collecting, he said. The judge's gaze sharpened. You have a deadline. Meet it. Tessa's fingers clenched around her pen so hard I thought it might snap. As we left the courtroom, Dana leaned close and spoke quietly, like she didn't want the walls to hear. Tomorrow, she said, everything falls apart for them. The trial day felt colder than it should have, not because of the weather, but because everyone in that courtroom knew something had shifted. Tessa sat beside her attorney, chin lifted, eyes glossy like she'd practiced looking wounded. My mother wore black. As if mourning, my father sat rigid, hands clasped. Looking older than the last time I saw him, the judge entered. And the room stood. When we sat, the judge's eyes went straight to Tessa's counsel. Before we begin, he said, I want to address the outstanding discovery compliance issues. Tessa's attorney started to speak, but his voice stumbled. Your Honor, we have made substantial efforts. The judge cut him off. You have missed deadlines, failed to produce complete records. and submitted documents with irregular metadata. Irregular metadata. Tessa's face tightened. Dana rose calmly. Your Honor, if I may. We're prepared to address those irregularities now. The judge nodded. Proceed. Dana's voice remained steady as she introduced the first exhibit, the email thread between Tessa and my mother. The screen in the courtroom displayed the subject line in plain, unforgiving text. Re-transfer routing. Keep it off my books. A ripple moved through the gallery. My mother's breath caught like she'd been punched. She stared at the screen as if she could erase it by refusing to look. Dana didn't pause. She presented the forensic accounting report next. The pattern of transfers, the matching dates to Tessa's liability notices, the routed payments that made it appear as if my sister had funded me while actually cleaning her own obligations. Then Dana introduced the call log and the recorded line from the credit union. The judge listened to the audio, jaw set, while Tessa's attorney's voice came through the speakers asking a bank employee to correct statement language and clean up descriptors. When the audio ended, the courtroom felt like it had lost oxygen. The judge leaned forward. Counsel, he said to Tessa's attorney. Do you understand what this implies? Tessa's attorney swallowed. Your Honor. I was acting on information provided by my client. The judge's eyes hardened. It implies attempted evidence manipulation. Tessa stood abruptly. This is twisted. Marin is framing me. Dana didn't raise her voice. She simply asked, Ms. Caldwell, do you recognize your mother's email address on that thread? Tessa's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked to my mother. Searching for rescue. My mother didn't move. Dana continued gently, almost kindly, which somehow made it harsher. Do you recognize your own words? Marin won't say no. She never does. Tessa's face flushed bright red. The judge turned to her. Ms. Caldwell, you filed this petition claiming your sister was insolvent and refusing to repay a legitimate loan. Yet the records indicate the so-called loan was a mechanism to route your liabilities through her business. Is that correct? Tessa shook her head wildly. No, that's not. The judge's voice rose. Answer the question. Tessa's attorney touched her arm, whispering urgently. But it was too late. The story was gone. The facts were standing naked in the room. Tessa's voice cracked. I just needed help. The judge's expression didn't soften. Then you should have asked for help. You chose litigation. You chose public accusation. You chose to misrepresent financial records to this court. He glanced down at his notes. Then back up. This petition is denied with prejudice, he said. I am issuing sanctions for bad faith filing and discovery violations. Additionally, the evidence of attempted manipulation will be referred for further review. My mother made a strangled sound. My father closed his eyes. Tessa stared at the bench like she couldn't understand how a performance could fail when she'd always been rewarded for one. Dana sat down. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply placed a hand lightly on my arm, grounding me. The judge looked at me briefly. Not warmly, not cruelly. Just with the tired seriousness of someone who'd seen too many families weaponize the court. This court is not a stage, he said. You are free to proceed with your business without interference. The gavel struck. And just like that, the lie died. As the room began to move again, my sister's shoulders started shaking. Not from remorse. From the shock of consequence, I stood, gathered my folder, and turned to leave. My mother's eyes met mine for a second, and I saw something I'd never seen there before. Fear. Because now she knew I wasn't the girl who never says no anymore. Thank you for staying with me through this moment where truth finally had a voice in the room. If Marin's story resonates with you, your support through a like, comment, share, or a gentle subscribe truly means more than you know. I'm grateful you're here. After the trial, the world didn't clap. Life doesn't hand you a soundtrack. It just quietly gives you room to breathe. The first thing I did was take my company off the emotional roller coaster my family tried to strap it to. Dana filed a protective order against further interference, and my compliance team updated vendor communications with one calm sentence: operations are stable and uninterrupted. And they were. Shipments went out on time. Contracts renewed. My board stopped looking over its shoulder. For the first time in months, I could sit at my desk and think about growth instead of defense. My family, meanwhile, shrank under the weight of consequences. Tessa's Creditor-Victim Act didn't survive the sanction order. People in town stopped treating her like a fragile heroine. They started treating her like someone who tried to game the system and got caught. The bank tightened her accounts. Her attorney stopped returning her calls. My mother's church friends became quiet around her. Polite but distant. Like they didn't know where the truth ended and the embarrassment began. My father called me 2 weeks later. His voice was rough. "Marin, can we talk?" I met him at a small diner off the highway. Neutral ground. He looked tired and smaller than I remembered. But his eyes were clearer than they'd been in years. He didn't waste time. "I watched your mother and your sister build that story," he said quietly, "and I didn't stop them. I waited." He swallowed. "I wanted peace. I thought if I stayed quiet, it would pass. It didn't," I said gently. "It just landed on me." He nodded. Eyes wet. "I'm sorry." The apology didn't erase the past. But it did something important. It admitted it existed. Then he said the sentence I didn't expect. "Tessa isn't okay," he whispered. "Not because she lost. Because she's never had to face herself." I stared out the window at the parking lot. At the ordinary cars and ordinary lives. That's not my job to fix anymore. My father's shoulders sagged. "I know." He reached into his jacket and slid something across the table, a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Not from my mother. From him. It was short. "Marin, you were the one who held us up. I see it now. I should have seen it then." I folded it carefully and put it back. A month later, my mother tried to come back into my life the only way she knew how, with control disguised as reconciliation. She appeared at my office lobby, asking reception to tell Marin it's an emergency. Security called me. I came down. And there she was. Hair perfect. Lipstick flawless. Eyes sharp with calculation. She started with the soft voice. "Honey, we should move forward." The court was stressful for everyone. I didn't invite her upstairs. "What do you want?" Her smile twitched. "Tessa is struggling financially. The sanctions are heavy. She can't breathe. You wouldn't want your sister ruined." I held her gaze. "She tried to ruin me." My mother's softness evaporated. "She's your sister." "And I was your daughter," I replied. "Yet you stood at a microphone and called me a liar." She pressed her lips together. "You're being unforgiving." I shook my head. "No, I'm being finished." For a second, her face hardened into the truth. "So you're going to abandon us?" I answered calmly. "You abandoned me the day you decided I was your scapegoat." She stared at me like she couldn't compute a world where guilt didn't work. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like an accusation. That night, I sat in my office after everyone left. Lights dim. City sounds faint outside the window. I opened my calendar and blocked out time for things I'd postponed for years. A vacation, a new product line, a mentorship program, a life. I realized my family had been a loop. I kept running because I thought love meant endurance. But love without respect isn't love. It's captivity. And the moment I stepped out of that loop, I didn't feel lonely. I felt light. I locked the door behind me, walked into the night, and didn't look back.